We go open to prayer this morning.
Most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today. We thank you for the blessings
you've already bestowed upon us, Father. And Father, as we meet here, we just pray that you'll be with Brother Jeremy, give him the words that you would have him to give to us, Father, from your word. Just bless everything that happens here today. We pray these things in Christ's name. Amen.
We're going to be starting a new series. Oh, turn me down too, please. Maybe I'm in the monitors. I don't know. We're going to be starting a new series this morning, probably 8-10 weeks. It's going to take us to get through it. It's going to be based off of Romans chapter 12, and we're actually going to jump into the middle of the chapter and start from there. We'll introduce that in a few minutes. But before we do that, I want to go back to one thing last week, and I probably could go back to a lot of things last week. I felt like when you I try to do two things, and that's never a good thing. But one specific area. Last week there was a comment made, and I did not handle that very well. Hamilton, I tried to be kind, which is a struggle for me, believe that or not. And I tried to respond to the comment, and I also tried to move back to where we were in the lesson and tried to complete it, because Jess and I wanted so much to finish that thought so that we were able to springboard into a new thing this week. And I feel like trying to do all three of those, I really accomplished none of them and just came about somewhat confusing. The comment was this, and I believe is an extremely important comment and has to be dealt with. And that was this. Brother Jeremy, let me help you out, because I honestly think it was just meant to help. It wasn't confronting, it was just meant to try to help illustrate a point. But I believe it's very wrong way and very much dangerous. And that was, Brother Jeremy, let me help you out. Maybe our problem is that we think God's love is unconditional, and God's love is not unconditional. God's love has conditions, and we know this because there is a hell, and if you don't, then you're going to hell, so there's conditions put on his love. Let me just make this statement. A lot of people teach that. I believe that is totally wrong, and it is extremely dangerous. And here's why. We know some things like Romans 5:8. But God commended his love toward us, and that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Miss Pat, will you please tell me? Never mind. You don't want to speak. Brother Doug, since you like to speak out loud, please tell me what condition was put on us for him to come to the cross and die. The most loving act ever in all of history. While we were yet sinners, he did it because he loved. Zero condition. And we can go Timothy 2:4. It's his will that all men. We can go multiple scriptures. He died for the sins of the whole world. He died for all men. Brother Hank, since Doug lost his tongue, here's your opportunity. Make him look bad, be smarter. What condition? I know you want to do that. No. Here's the false humility, Doug. Look over here. What condition is placed on there? None. See, he is loving towards us. But remember, everything we said last week is based upon this idea. His love wants love back. And if you're going to receive love, not a puppet, you must allow choice. So he loves. Ben, he loves. What did he put on you before he loved? Nothing. There is no condition on you. He loves. But his love gives you or to deny. Okay? There is not a hell. Hell was not even created for man. Think about this. The angels were created eternal. So what could you do? There is no, they're eternal beings. It would have been like man if he ate of the garden. And he lived forever. So somewhere something hell was not created for man. God made a way so man doesn't have to go there. He loves. But he gives man the opportunity to say, I don't want you. He gives freedom. Now, Ms. Pat, when we say, I don't want you, and we continue to push back, you know what? He pursues us, and he challenges us, and he makes a way, and he makes the church, and he sets opportunities because he loves. But still, he is respectful, because love requires respect. Oftentimes, that's how we end up having marital fights. I love respect. Well, he's always loving, and he always gives us that opportunity. And when we say no, it does not mean he's not loving. The picture here is what happens. Matt, the picture is we're holding or limiting God based off of the result. The result, men go to hell, therefore he must not be loving. Well, that's so backwards. How old are you, Matt? 38. Hank, that would be like holding you responsible because Matt gets a DUI. It's not your fault. Matt has choice. You respect him enough to give him choice. You love him irrespective of his choice. But you have a will for him. By the way, Timothy, his will is that all men be saved and come to the knowledge of repentance. That's his will. But his will also is that you decide so that you can love back. And so his primary will of loving so that he can get love allows you the opportunity to choose, and you choose DUI, not your fault. Getting God's love because man decides to reject it, there's all kinds of problems. And it's a backward way of thinking that we do for everything. Let's decide what is true based off the result. Do you remember 4 weeks ago we talked about that? Hank, that is a much bigger problem than you would think. We build our theology based off of things like that. That's why truth is truth, fight for truth. The problem, God doesn't think like we think. His ways aren't our ways. Justin, how are we supposed to understand truth if he's truth, which he is, right? Yep, we agree he's truth. I mean, we can go to lunch and have a good time. But how can we agree on what truth is if we have no relationship with his word? And then we start building it backwards. So I should have dealt with that last week. Should have just stopped, but we didn't. And I felt it important to do this morning. Now, that sets up and brings us to where we'll be this morning. We're going to start a new series. It's from Romans chapter 12. And Brother Nate, did you steal her purse? Miss Myrna, do you feel like everybody's staring at you? Well, at least you know the truth. If free means you're outside that door, Miss Myrna, love you, ma'am. Romans chapter 12. Let's set this up a little bit. And we need to set it up a little bit. First, this is going to be applied. Donnie, this is going to be applied very much to us in our time. And I think that's the importance of Romans chapter 12, especially the latter half where we're going to spend our time. And our time is an uneasy time. It's a difficult time. Doug, I was thinking about this week, we're basically 20 years after the Twin Towers, and yet still we're full of violence and threats and terrorism, and now it's terrorism from the outside, it's terrorism from the inside. I mean, it is just a nervous time. We had hoped for progress in things like race relations and just overall anger and hatred and separation. But instead of progress, we've got a new rising intensity. There's a total loss of civility. There's no manners in our society. It just seems like everywhere and in everything, it is a powder keg and it could blow up. People don't want to wait in line at McDonald's. I saw somebody the other day at a store mad because the clerk didn't respond quick enough, and no store has enough clerks because we won't get into all that. That'll be bad. Actually, I'm thinking I just made Treva laugh. I was probably getting way out of line. And didn't want to stand in line, So they turned around, walked out of the store, and knocked a bunch of boxes off on the floor. Preacher, funny thing, she had left her little purse, wallet, phone, all together sitting right there on the counter, and she had to come back in to get it. Anyway, yes, sir. Yes, sir. But that's just common. I saw that. You could probably search it on the internet, and there's 100 of those that just happened yesterday. Somebody posted a picture of it. It is, I mean, people are getting shot because they turned in front of you, and they're getting hit and rammed, and our society just seems like it has gone crazy with hatred. And I'm going to tell you, that makes, so here we go. So, Tony, so the answer, what's the answer? Well, I'm going to tell you, the world would tell you the answer is we need to teach kids to be different. Okay, but I'm going to tell you this, here's the challenge. Kids always go further than their parents. So if their parents are acting that ugly and that crazy and that judgmental and that condemning, kids are way further. They don't ever stop at the same place. Always go further. Now, you tell me how you're supposed to teach that kid. How are you supposed to teach that kid? It becomes, I mean, it seems like there's no hope and things are going to get worse. And we didn't even talk about things like our society is divided over marriage. We're divided over gender. How can we be divided over gender? But we're divided over gender. Politics has always been two different roads, but they could talk. Now we're like the English Parliament. We're jumping over the tables, throwing shoes at each other. And we're sneaking behind to try to get people arrested and kicked out. And can't even have a discussion. And, and then you top it all off. You got this whole, it's cool to be the victim thing running through all of society, which, if you really stop and think, it's everywhere. I'm one of the few people that have been watching the Olympics, Stephen, since, their ratings are down like 37%, which probably serves us right. But one of the things that just kind of flows Olympics is this victim thought that I have no freedom while they're protesting, while they're using their freedom to protest, they're protesting over the fact that they have no freedom. Because I must be a victim. I must be being mistreated as I have all this opportunity set in front of me. And that just whole victim thought rolls through all areas of society. Which, how does everything get better? Tony, let me tell you, if I think I'm being mistreated, I don't usually respond very nicely. I don't respond in kindness and the goodness of my heart. I usually grab your foot and say, get off me. And, Treva, I'm supposed to be the good saved Christian. What's the rest supposed to be? You can laugh at that too. What's the rest of society going to do? This is the time, the era we're growing up. So, growing up. I'm still growing up. So, Doug, what are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to respond in this arena? Well, to answer that is why we're going to Romans chapter 12. And from Romans chapter 12, we're going to be saying, Lord, from your word, calm my fears in this time. Lord, from your word, renew my hope in this time, that there is hope, because it's supposed to be all hope. And because of those things, Lord, renew my resolve, renew my strength. Help me to last and to stand in this time. Show me how. Now, all of this is going to start in Romans chapter 12, verse 21, but that's the conclusion. We're going to back it up and spend all of our time after today, starting in Romans 9 through 21. Romans chapter 12, verse 21. Eric, do you have that? Yeah. Be not overcome of evil. Lorraine, we mentioned a whole lot of bad things. And this is what the Bible is saying to Lorraine. Lorraine, be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. And so we're going to spend some time there because it's a big statement that, doesn't feel warm and fuzzy. But by the time we're done looking at Romans 12, hopefully it will. But before we, got to throw out another one of these words that makes people just go, and that is we have to understand a little bit of the history of the time when this is written. Now, I know history just meant, Brother Wayne went, okay, well, this really matters when this was written, okay? It matters what the church has gone through. When he's reaching out saying, overcome evil with good, Ben, if you don't understand the history, you go, yeah, but this is when the church was powerful and the apostles were running around and they were doing miracles and there was times of signs and wonders and things just weren't bad like today. It was easy to overcome with good when you're walking by Peter. It was easy to overcome evil with good when you're traveling with Paul. Well, just now, I want you to understand, this is the book of Romans. Those who were in Rome, we need to look at what was going on during this time period. And so we'll start during the first 70 years. During the first 70 years of the church, we'll do it this way. The first 70 years of the century, there you go, that's said right. The first 70 years of this first century, Ms. Pat, it depends on where you go to, because 69 AD, there were actually 4 emperors in 1 year. So there were actually 9. We're just going to reference the first 5. So we're going to go the first 69 years. I should do that. The first 69 years of the first century, there were 5 Roman emperors. The first one was Caesar Augustus. He ruled in 27 BC to 14 AD. He's referred to in Luke. Remember, in those days there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And then and Caesar Augustus has issues, but basically you're talking about kind of the golden age of Rome. He was followed by Tiberius in 14 AD to 37 AD, and you can see him. Actually, Tiberius is important to us because we date Christ's ministry based off of Luke chapter 3, one of the places we do, where it tells us that it was the 15th year of Tiberius that the word of the Lord came unto, and John stepped forward, and John began to teach and to preach and be the forerunner, and Christ's ministry follows shortly after. So the 15th year of Tiberius, we know, would basically be 29 AD. So we can date John stepped out to speak the forerunner of Christ in 29 AD. Christ follows shortly after him, hence the 3 years of Christ's ministry. So we get Tiberius, and things weren't really so bad during those 2, but then Doug begins a terrible, ugly, nasty time in Rome's history. 3 of the worst rulers that we could imagine. We'd probably elect them. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that either. Well, you can judge for yourself when we start talking about them a little bit, because this is why it matters so much. Because Justin, when he tells you, be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good, we need to take away out all the excuses, yeah, buts. There is no yeah, buts. The times were very similar, actually. In fact, they were probably a little bit further along on the spiral than we are. Not many, not much, but probably. The next came Caligula. And, we've heard his name. We know some things about Caligula. I'm just going to give you a few things because they should start to ring similar. Caligula reigned for about 6 months, and then there was a terrible sickness, and nobody knows what that sickness is. But when he recovered from that illness, he seems to have lost some of his faculties, his ability to think. He went crazy. And some of the things Caligula is famous for is he ordered an altar to be built to himself. This comes from the Roman historian Suetonius. He ordered an altar to be built from himself, and it was made out of gold. And he had priests that were set aside to take care of his altar and his temple. And one of the things they had to do was find out what he was wearing every single day, go get clothes exactly that matched that, put it on the gold statue, which was made to look exactly like him. He ordered that all the statues and great works of art in Greece be sent to Rome so that he could chop the heads off, because Brother Roy, he wanted heads to be put on those great statues that looked just like him. He was ridiculous in his arrogance and his opulence. He's known for his excesses and indulgences when it comes to sensuality and the things that happened in the palace. that he just okayed. The decay of Roman society in that area really took off. And it didn't begin under Caligula, but it got endorsed and blew up under Caligula. And one of the things that's not talked about is the fact that Caligula totally bankrupted Rome in 2 years. When it comes to money, he had a famous saying. He said, a man ought to either be a good economist or an emperor, meaning this: I'm an emperor. I can spend whatever I want to. It doesn't matter about the rules of money or economy. If you're an emperor, do what you want, which sometimes it looks like that's how we're managing our government these days too. For years, Rome lived under this nightmare that was Caligula, until 2 of his own bodyguards killed him, and then all of Rome took a big breath. And he was followed by Claudius. Claudius is referred to in Acts chapter 18, verse 2, where it tells us that Aquila and Priscilla moved because they had to leave Rome because Claudius made a proclamation that all Christians had to move out of the city. Now, Justin, they could live just out of the city, but they couldn't enjoy the benefits of what was in the city. And so Claudius, and there's lots of, kind of horror stories about Claudius. But between Caligula and who was to come next, Claudia was like the breath of fresh air, because you got Caligula, Claudius, and then you have Nero. And Nero reigned from like 54 to 68 AD. And when Nero came to power, well, there's a lot of crazy things that we know about Nero because it was such a nightmare. They wrote it all down. Nero is believed, we don't know whether he did or not, but we know this, Brother Tony. He believed he had a good singing voice. He believed it, and that's all that mattered, because he used to often start these singing contests where everybody would come and sign up and sing in the singing contest. Sign up, because if they didn't, he would have a problem. Don't back my contest? Who is it that won't support my contest? And you want to know something else? All these people would join his contest, and guess who won? He did. Because how would you like to be a judge and vote against him? In fact, we know some more things about these contests. Suetonius would write, many of the spectators, being quite wearied of hearing and applauding him, because every time he got up to sing, you know what you did? Hey, hey, hey! Would slip away privately over the edge of the walls, or if they couldn't do that, because the gates were locked, you couldn't get out. Not only did you have to go, but you couldn't get out. Again, arrogance, self-obsession, ego. But people would actually counterfeit themselves to be dead. So you know this is a quote, because I would have just said they play dead. They would counterfeit themselves to be dead, so they would be carried out, and sometimes even to the point that they would have to go through a funeral because they didn't want him hunting them down and killing them for real. Nero was a man of extraordinary cruelty. We've talked about this before. He arranged for the murder of his first wife, his aunt, and his mother. He tried to kill his mother multiple times. 3 times he tried to poison her, but apparently she had the antidote, so she wouldn't die. So then he had them weaken the ceiling or the floor above her bed so that it would cave in on her. Somehow she lived through that. So then he had a ship intentionally wrecked that she was sailing on. She lived through that. Eventually he was able to complete the deed, and she died. He's just an evil person. He was married 5 different times to 3 women and 2 men. Suetonius would write this: the last of his men, he gelded the boy Sporus and endeavored to transform him into a woman. See, you thought that was new. He even went so far as to marry him in front of all the populace, with all the usual formalities of a marriage settlement. When the ceremony was over, he had him conducted like a bride to his own house and treated him as his wife. This Sporus he carried about with him everywhere, dressed in the rich attire of an empress, occasionally even kissing him from time to time as they rode in front of all the population. I know this makes you want to go, but it might make you remember just this past election when we had the kiss. And we're supposed to endorse it. We're supposed to be okay with it. We're not supposed to have comment. Justin, there's a lot of comparisons here between these times. There's a lot of similar evil. Now, same time period, there were a lot of things going on in the church during this time period. In fact, Pentecost was the year 33 AD. The book of Acts is about 30 years. You know what that means? That means everything in the book of Acts, all these wonderful things, then they took place during the rule of Claudius. Well, do it in order. Caligula, Claudius, and Nero. So when we want to say, oh yeah, the church did well, but they didn't have to go through what we... Yes, they did. In fact, this book of Romans was written in 56, 57 AD. Paul would write the book of Romans. And as soon as it was done, well, let me do this. So we understand this time. Eric, did I ask you to put up Romans 13? Oh, yeah. Here. Preacher, understanding the times this is written makes Romans 13 a whole lot more challenging to us. Okay, because it was during the reign of Nero that Paul would write this. Let every soul be subject unto Nero. Yeah, Justin, I have a lot of things I could say if we ever went to lunch about some members of our government. I don't always flow with this attitude, much to my fault. Now, that doesn't make those things any more okay or right, but it does reveal the challenge in my heart, or the lack of faith, or dependence, or you understand. Because during Nero, Paul would write, let every soul be subject to the higher power, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For the rulers are not a terror to good works, but it's Nero. But to the evil, wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good. Oh, and thou shalt have praise of the same. Anyway, Paul would write this, 57 AD, and then we would get to Acts chapter 25, 26, after the book of Romans is written. Doug, after the books of Romans is written, then he went to Caesarea, and they wanted to stop him from preaching. They wanted to stop him from doing good. And so they built lies against him, and he was arrested, and he was being tried. This is the period of Festus, 25, 26. And in there, in Acts chapter, I think it's in 25. Yeah, it's in 25, because he's very kind. In Acts chapter 25, he says, I'm a Roman citizen. I don't have to be tried here. I have the opportunity to be tried in Rome. Think about this. He's thinking that he can go to Rome in 58 AD and get a better opportunity for justice under Nero. This just show you how fast things change. In 58 AD, Paul thought it was better to go to Rome. In 60 AD, he ends up in Rome because, he's shipwrecked, and then he gets to Rome, and then when he gets to Rome, he's chained up for 2 years in house arrest, and then that would bring us up to like 63 AD, where Peter would write, don't be so nervous about the fiery trials. Apparently, he was prophetic, because you know what happens in 64 AD? Rome burns. Doug, I just want you to understand all these things are what's going on. '64 AD, Rome is set on fire. Tacitus, a different Roman historian, says that there were 14 precincts in Rome. Only 4 were undamaged. 10 were utterly destroyed. Of the 10, 4 had some burnt buildings left standing, but they had to be torn down. There was nothing that could be rebuilt. It said that Nero fiddled during this. He wanted to rebuild Rome, so the power, the government that was supposed to protect, destroyed and tore down and snuck behind so they could rebuild it. You got to crack a few eggs if you're going to make an omelet kind of thing. But what happened is rumors began to spread about, how he probably was behind it. He needed a scapegoat. Claudius had already kind of pointed the fingers at the Christians when he said, get out of town. And so he jumped on the bandwagon, blamed them, went after them. And here I'll give you just a little bit more, and then we're going to be done with this. And we'll start to move into our passage, our thought. The Roman historian Tacitus would write, by the way, who was no friend to Christians, therefore, to scorch the rumors, Nero substituted as culprits and punished with the utmost refinements of cruelty a class of men whom the crowd styled Christians. Christians, from whom they got their name, had been executed by sentence of procurator Pontius Pilate when Tiberius was emperor. First, then, those who confessed themselves Christians were arrested. Next, on their disclosures, a vast multitude were convicted, not so much on the charge of arson for burning the city. This is scarily similar. Preacher, they were convicted on the charge of hatred of the human race. You see, they didn't agree with what was going on in society. And so since you didn't agree with society, you're not part of society, we'll help you out and take you out of society because you can't tell us that our society is wrong. And so for this, their deaths were made a matter of sport. They were covered in wild beast skins. They were torn to pieces by dogs. They were fastened to crosses. They were set on fire to serve as torches. We talked about this, Roman candles. Hence, from all of this cruelty, there arose a feeling of pity. All of this still a quote. Because it was felt that they were being sacrificed, not for the common good of Rome, but to gratify the savagery of one man. In that feeling, though, no one stopped it. No one said anything. They allowed it to go on. No. I just want you to realize how quickly, from 60 AD to 64 AD, the world of Rome turned. It went from, I appealed to because I could get better opportunity, more justice under Roman law in 60 AD to 64 AD, cover them in blood, let the dogs eat them. We tend to live in this world of ourselves. We want to just concentrate on, Doug, these are our freedoms are under attack. They're threatened every day. Morality, as we know it, is being swept away. It has never, well, that's where we go so wrong. It has never been this bad. Yes, it has. Christians have been here before. But Tony, listen to me. The church has been here before. You know what's not here? Rome is not here. But you know what still is here? The church is still here. Okay. There is a way we are to respond. Paul is going to teach us that in Romans 12, the way to respond to evil, so that we're not overcome with evil. And the church will go on. Christianity will go on. Evil does not win. That is amazing. But you want to know what's depressing? Here you go. Depressing. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. Well, how is that depressing? Because it's written. You know what that means? That means it's possible for you and I to be overcome of evil. Evil does not have to win. Wake up, Ben. Okay, you say, where, Jeremy? Thanks for that. If I'm not awake, I can be overcome. What does that look like? What does it look like to be overcome? Well, I'll give you a little simple thing. When you take 25 minutes to set it up, you don't have no time. Simple thing. I can just spend every waking minute reading and watching the news. Let me tell you that. Just make it like it's just ridiculous. Why and depression and I can become overcome of evil. I thought about this. Katie, I thought about this. Okay, I am so proud of how you've gone through nursing classes. Oh, look at me, this is the only time I'm saying anything nice. I am proud through your nursing classes. Did you get that on film? Because some of those classes, let me tell you, they do nothing except tear down Christianity. You're taking some anatomy classes, some biology classes, you're stuck in some science areas, even a few math areas where all they want to do is take pot shots. And to say anything, to stand for anything in that class is to be mocked and to tore down and not be part of the group. And let me tell you, it's hard to go through those classes not being part of the group. You need some support. They're not easy. Very proud of that. But let me, when you work, be happy. Pressure to be overcome with the and the thinking and the attitude. I mean, they want to live that they're under. Being a volunteer. With each life and meaning and purpose outside. I'm going to read these verses, and then I'm going to be out of time. So I'm going to throw out 3 thoughts, and then we're going to end. And brother, at me afterwards. I've heard about those baseball times. I don't want to have to catch it. Romans chapter 12, verse 21. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. Now that's the conclusion, and it starts basically from Romans 12:9. Be without dissimulation. Abhor that which is evil. Cleave to that which is good. Okay, we're talking about good things. Be kindly affectionate one another. One another. Boy, I sure is not slothful. Well, let me tell you, that really is tough. Because we sure want the easy money. I will just tell you, some of the saddest, most convicting things I hear are how Christians deal with money or work or taxes or insurance policies or every other time they see an opportunity, so they just so they can get. Not slothful in business. Fervent. We get through of the saints, given to hospitality, bless them which persecute you, bless and curse not. Woo. Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that. I just want to be happy. When I get around them, they're always so down. Be of the same mind one towards another. Mind not high things, but condescend to men of low estate. Be not wise in your own conceits. Recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Doug, we're 10 weeks. That's not hard to figure out. Because these things do not just come natural to us. But if we are going to overcome the evil in this world with good, this is what good. Save those 3 things. Maybe we'll bring them up next week. Close in order of prayer.